Excellencies, Your Beatitude, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the University of Nicosia and to this evening's cultural event entitled Multicultural Cyprus, the Armenian Community. This is the first of a series of events dedicated to the communities of Cyprus. Tonight's event is organized under the University of Nicosia's UNESCO Chair on Cultural Diversity and Intercultural Dialogue for a Culture of Peace, with the support of the Cyprus Center for Intercultural Studies and the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Foundation in Cyprus. Over the course of the evening, we will be treated to a film screening, dance performances, and speeches that aim to simultaneously highlight and celebrate the Armenian community of Cyprus. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Emilios Solomou, Director of the UNESCO Chair of the University of Nicosia, for his welcome address.
Distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, the University of Nicosia UNESCO Chair on Cultural Diversity and Intercultural Dialogue for a Culture of Peace was established in October 2004. This was the result of a considerable effort on the part of Professor George Mavroidis, who pursued this objective with zest and dedication. He was the first director of the chair and served until May 2013 when he retired. It is now left to me to continue the path that he had opened, which was quite rich, a program with rich activities that made the UNESCO chair. It was the first chair in Cyprus, the first UNESCO chair, and I really feel honored and proud to follow in his footsteps. The purpose of the UNESCO chair is the promotion of a comprehensive framework of educational activities, research, provision for information and documentation in the area of cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity, and the intercultural dialogue for a culture of peace on a local, national, and regional level. Since its establishment, the chair has organized a number of activities, seminars, and events, the most recent of which were a seminar in Crete dedicated to Nikos Kazantzakis, and last May, a seminar titled The Transition from Kindergarten to Primary School, which was organized in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Culture, where over 200 teachers participated from all over Cyprus. Further, the chair has published a number of booklets dedicated to Greek authors, as well as documentaries on Cypriot society and culture. Tonight's event is part of a series dedicated to the multiculturalism of Cyprus, and the aim is to organize similar events on the Latin and Maronite religious groups, as well as the Turkish Cypriot community. Future plans include a publication on Nikos Kazantzakis, a book with Cretan Mandinades, and a one-day conference in May 2014 on the transition from primary school to secondary school. The Armenian community, although small in number, plays an important part in Cypriot life and economy, while at the same time maintaining their distinct language, culture, and tradition. Tonight's event will attempt to give us an idea of the Armenian community in Cyprus. Thank you all for being here tonight, and hope to see you again in future events to be organized by the UNESCO Chair of the University of Nicosia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Solomou. Next, I would like to invite Professor Michalis Atalidis, Rector of the University of Nicosia, to the stage to deliver his address.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to this first event of the new period of the UNESCO Chair at the University of Nicosia, with Dr. Emilios Solomou as its director. The UNESCO Chair is, I believe, particularly close to what this university represents: cultural diversity, intercultural dialogue, culture of peace and multiculturalism, and an international attitude particularly close to the identity of the University of Nicosia. I am also very happy that the center of attention today is the Armenian community, a community which has contributed a great deal to Cyprus. In this introductory address, I thought it would be useful to refer to one or two of the approaches of great social thinkers to the issue of cultural diversity in society. Traditional and primitive societies do not generally allow for diversity. They cohere and hold together through the similarity of their members. The classical French sociologist Émile Durkheim talked about the mechanical solidarity of traditional societies on the one hand, which hold together through common identity, common beliefs, and particularly common religion. On the other hand, advanced societies cohere through organic solidarity, which is a solidarity born of the interdependence of specialized and differentiated members and interdependence born of the division of labor, specialization in other words, which makes people interdependent because they contribute differently to production and to society generally. Advanced societies, Durkheim pointed out, can be culturally diverse because their cohesion does not depend on cultural homogeneity, but rather on the division of labor, specialization, and functional interdependence. Another classical social thinker, Karl Marx, talked about the idiocy of rural life, as he called it, where every individual was virtually the same as every other individual. Peasants, he wrote, are like identical potatoes in a sack. And finally, I'll refer to the great living German philosopher and sociologist Jürgen Habermas. He describes how European nations arrived at the state of homogeneous nationalism, where common descent, language, and religion created a sense of identity, identical rights, equality, and a sense of belonging. These things made the introduction of modern democracy possible. However, he goes on to analyze the fact that the significance of this is that once modern democracy was created, it generated a totally different concept, the concept of civic equality and constitutional loyalty. That the equal rights and duties of each citizen are derived from his right to equal citizenship and his relationship to the guarantees which the Constitution gives to each citizen, and not to the fact of cultural and national and religious identity. This, argues Habermas, is the way in which modern societies incorporate as equal members of minority groups and immigrants. This is also, he argues, what makes the European Union possible. Of course, this was not the only kind of concept, the one I've just described, which was introduced into the Cyprus Constitution in 1960, although these concepts are strongly present insofar as fundamental rights and freedoms are concerned. However, in terms of political rights, the Cyprus Constitution elected a more traditional rather than contemporary European approach, in which all citizens of Cyprus needed to belong to either the Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot community, while also recognizing a number of religious groups, including, of course, the Armenian community, whose individual and collective rights were guaranteed by the Constitution and are guaranteed by the Constitution. So these are some of the causes, complications of history and political arrangements which keep life interesting and academics busy. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Atalidis. Please welcome Mr. Vartkes Mahdesian, representative of the Armenian community in the Cyprus House of Representatives, for his address.
Your Beatitude, Your Excellencies, Honorable Mayor of Kythrea, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and a great honor for me as a Cypriot Armenian and as the representative of the Armenian community to be here this evening to participate in this special event organized by the UNESCO chair of the University of Nicosia. Armenians are one of the oldest people in the world, and Armenia is considered by many scientists and historians as the cradle of civilization, and it happens to be the first country in the world to have adopted Christianity as the state religion in 301. With the discovery of the Armenian alphabet in 405, the Bible was transcribed into the rich Armenian language, enabling Armenians to produce great works of literature, poetry, and calligraphy. Having endured periods of exceptional greatness, as well as ongoing tragedies, such as the first genocide of the 20th century in 1915, the Armenian nation is today dispersed around the world. Our Armenian Cypriot community consists essentially of the descendants of genocide survivors, although the Armenian presence in Cyprus dates back to 578 during the Byzantine era, while Armenian was one of the official languages in Cyprus during the Latin period. The persecuted Armenian genocide refugees did not take long to grow new roots in the hospitable land of Cyprus, and some of them excelled in their own fields. Cyprus is our adoptive homeland, the land where we were born and grew up in a multicultural environment of acceptance, tolerance, and understanding. Today, the approximately 3,500 Cypriot Armenians, a fraction of the large community of the past, are mainly involved in business and crafts. Generally, the Armenian community is well organized with its churches, elementary schools, social clubs, monthly newspaper, daily Armenian radio program, church choir, football teams, and folklore dancing. In this beautiful island, the Armenian community has been enjoying many social, religious, cultural, political, and educational privileges which would be envied by Armenian communities elsewhere on the globe. The moral and financial support empowers us and strengthens our spirit and determination for physical and ethnic survival. Talking on behalf of the Cypriot Armenians, I would like to repeat what I often say. We are grateful to the President of the Republic, the leader of the Greek Orthodox Church, the government, as well as all the people of Cyprus for actively caring for the well-being of the Armenian community and for their assistance in preserving our rich culture, heritage, language, and religious identity. Due to the extended Armenian diaspora, it is imperative for us to keep our unique identity alive for our generation and those to come. We have to do our best and be strong partners in the Cypriot multicultural society, while at the same time preserve the Armenian identity. In a country like Cyprus, where diversity of culture is highly celebrated and respected, we need to provide ongoing opportunities for the rich Armenian culture to be known and admired by the local society. Through various activities and events, often sponsored by the Cypriot government, we make it possible for all Cypriots to share the pride we have in our long history and rich culture. And this evening,
you will get glimpses of this when hopefully you will enjoy the Armenian dances and feel the passion and eloquence of the movements which brings to life our ancestors' stories and reveals the emotional expression of pain and suffering which are united with joy and love. I'm grateful to the University of Nicosia, especially Dr. Emilio Solomou, for appreciating the value of the community I represent and for offering this opportunity to raise awareness of the Armenian identity and soul. I would like to end this introduction with the words of a well-known American Armenian dramatist and writer, William Saroyan. Although I write in English, and despite the fact that I am from America, I consider myself an Armenian writer. The words I use are in English. The surroundings I write about are American, but the soul which makes me write is Armenian. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahdessian. We will now proceed with the screening of a short film entitled The Armenians in Cyprus.
They constitute a small but dynamic part of the population of Cyprus, numbering in total some 3,500. They form a minority, albeit one with a strong and centuries-old presence on the island. They are Cypriots, with their roots reaching far back in time. They are the Armenian community of Cyprus. The Armenian nation can be proud of its centuries-old course through history. Its land extends between the Black and the Caspian Seas in the southern Caucasus. In the Armenian language, the land is called Haik, a name which became Hayastan following the addition of the Persian suffix stan, meaning land or country. The original name itself derives from Haik, a great-grandson of Noah and the legendary patriarch of the Armenians. Noah himself had, as mentioned, made landfall in the ark on Mount Ararat, situated in that part of Armenia today under the control of Turkey. Mount Ararat, with its impressive peak at an elevation of 5,137 meters above sea level, currently Turkey's highest mountain, continues to form a symbol to Armenians the world over, as well as a constant reminder of the place from which they were violently ousted. The mountain itself also forms a particularly favorite subject for Armenian artists. Armenian history dates back to at least the 9th century BC, when, in the area around Lake Van, The kingdom of Uratru was established, only to be overrun in 585 BC by the Medes. The region was subsequently subjugated by the Persians, with one Armenian revolt after another against the then rulers, all ending in failure. In 1071 it was conquered by the Seljuk Turks, at which time a large section of the population emigrated to Cilicia, where, in 1080, the kingdom of Little Armenia was established northeast of Cyprus. This kingdom was dissolved in 1375 by the Mameluke Turks, while the original Armenian state also came under new conquerors, the Mongols and the Ottoman Turks. In 1829, Russia wrested from Turkey a large expanse of Armenian territory, which later became the Armenian Soviet Socialist Republic. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the state of Armenia once again became an independent republic, albeit with a large part of its territory still within the borders and under the control of Turkey. Armenia was one of the first countries to accept Christianity, and in 301 this became the country's official religion, making Armenia the first Christian state in the world. Through the centuries, many significant monasteries thrived there. It experienced periods of exceptional greatness, as well as many and ongoing tragedies. It was mainly because of these tragedies and forced exoduses that Armenian communities were established in various countries of the world where the diaspora flourished. It was in this way also that the Armenian community in Cyprus was formed many centuries ago, which, after the Greek, is the second oldest community on the island. This because the presence of Armenians in Cyprus is first documented in the latter half of the 6th century. It would appear that Armenian settlers arrived in Cyprus in the 7th and 8th centuries as well, and also the 10th. Settlements in Cyprus attested to as Armenian, such as the villages of Platani, Kornokipos, Stathariko, Patriki and Armenochori, appear to have been initially related to the establishment on the island of Armenian military detachments. From 1192 to 1489, as well as during the subsequent and brief period of Venetian rule, 1489 to 1570, the Armenian community of Cyprus not only maintained, but also strengthened its presence on the island, especially as of 1210, when a marriage brought the kingdoms of Cyprus and Little Armenia even closer. It was then that King Leo II of Little Armenia married Sibylla, stepsister of Cyprus's King Hugh I. Another marriage came to strengthen this cooperation when, in 1238, Cyprus's King Henry I, whose first wife had died in Kyrenia during a siege of the town, wed Stephanie of Lampron, sister of Armenia's King Hetum I. There followed more marriages between members of the two royal families. In Nicosia, the Armenians were to be found mainly in the western part of the town, from the area around Paphos Gate to Sarai Square. This area used to be known as Armenogitonia, or Armenian neighborhood, while the Their Gate, which formed part of the older, no longer in existence walls, was also known as Armenian. It was during this time, around 1425, that the Armenian Church received possession of the monastery of St. Makarios on the Pentadactylos range. The monastery had been founded circa 1000 AD, and was dedicated to St. Makarios the Hermit, a 4th century ascetic who, according to tradition, had lived in the area. The monastery, at a privileged and beautiful location, in 1974 came under Turkish occupation, was looted and subsequently left to the elements, while in 1997 it was also greatly ravaged by fire. To the Armenians, this holy place was rendered inaccessible by the Turkish invasion and occupation of the northern part of Cyprus. However, since May 2007, and following an initiative by the representative of the Armenian community, Vartkes Maktesian, the occupation forces allowed group visits and the holding of prayers at the now dilapidated monastery. Every year, on the first Sunday of May, Armenians organize a mass pilgrimage to the monastery. In Nicosia, the Armenians were initially smiled upon by the new masters with a firman or edict issued by Sultan Selim II in May 1571, granting them possession of the medieval Latin convent of Notre Dame de Tyr. This significant monastery, occupying a large plot of land at the western rim of the within-the-walls town, acted as the very heart and soul of the Armenian community of Cyprus for the next 4 centuries, until, that is, the intercommunal strife of 1963-64, the Turkish Cypriots' withdrawal from government, and their resulting establishment in the area of an enclave, thus rendering the place inaccessible. However, following decades of desolation and abandonment, and once again thanks to the initiative and efforts of the representative of the Armenian community, Vartkes Mahtesian, as well as those of the Armenian Ethnarchy, October 2009 saw the commencement of restoration and reconstruction work funded by the UNDP. During the first years of the Ottoman rule, it's estimated that some 20,000 Armenians were living in Cyprus. However, this number soon dropped dramatically, with many fleeing the island after the new rulers, like the Venetians before them, also proved particularly cruel and inhuman. The Armenians were also persecuted during the widespread massacres and lootings carried out by the Turks in Cyprus in 1821 during the many reprisals against civilians following the start of the Greek Revolution. The overall situation was somewhat improved towards the end of the Ottoman rule of Cyprus, particularly because of the Tanzimat reforms which the Ottoman Empire was obliged to introduce throughout its domain under pressure from Europe's Christian powers. It was then that a small number of Armenians from Constantinople and elsewhere settled in Cyprus, bolstering the up till then relatively small community. A number of Armenians were merchants and traders. Both they and the other inhabitants of the island in the same line of work started seeing better days given the new conditions, particularly after the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869. The overall situation in Cyprus began improving during the British rule 1878 to 1960. The new conditions also helped the small Armenian community gradually improve its social standing. Known for their knowledge of languages, a number of Armenians from Constantinople, Smyrna and Cilicia moved to Cyprus to work in the British administration and consulates. The number of Armenians in Cyprus increased significantly after the mass deportations and massacres perpetrated by the Ottomans between 1894 and 1896, and later in 1909. These persecutions culminated in the 1915 to 1923 enormous tragedy to which the Armenians living in Cilicia and other parts of Turkey were subjected. A shocking and historically attested to event which, to a certain degree, affected Cyprus as well. This grand and imposing monument sits atop a hill overlooking the Armenian capital of Yerevan and is known as Tsitsarnakapert, or the Swallow's Fortress. It's a monument dedicated to the Armenian genocide carried out by the Turks between 1915 and 1923. 1.5 million people were slaughtered by the Turks during that time, while many others managed to flee and end up in various parts of the world. Cyprus, not far from the shores of Cilicia, received some 10,000 refugees, most of whom later left for other lands, even though a few, some 1,500, remained, bolstering the Armenian community of Cyprus. In Cyprus, the Armenian community succeeded under the new and more favorable circumstances to make headway towards a better life. This small but dynamic and progressive community of Cyprus would, from then on, thrive in various fields. It succeeded in producing from its ranks significant men and women of the arts, who rose to fame primarily in the field of music, and who, in some instances, were also groundbreakers on the island itself, as, for example, world-renowned musician Vahan Bedelian. Members of the Armenian community of Cyprus also led the way in the field of photography. They succeeded in establishing their own educational institutions, associations, and choirs. They built new churches, established themselves as men and women of the arts, letters, and sciences. They proved successful entrepreneurs, merchants, and craftsmen. Some also worked in mines recently reopened, such as those of Skouryotissa, Mavrovouni, and Amiandos. In Nicosia, 1921 saw the founding of the Melikian School, and 1938 that of the Uzunian School. The Chapel of St. Paul was built in 1892, and that of the Resurrection in 1938. While the Armenian Club was founded in 1902, the AGBU in 1913, and the major cultural and sports association AIMA in 1934. In Larnaca, the Church of St. Stephen was built in 1909, while the same year saw the founding of the Musekian School, which was rebuilt in 1923. Also in Larnaca, 1912 saw the founding of the Ver AGBU, and 1931 that of the Ver Armenian Club. Similarly, in Limassol, the Armenian School began operation in 1928, even though it wasn't until 1951 that it acquired its own building. The Church of St. George was built in 1939, while the Limassol chapter of the AGBU was established in 1936. In Famagusta, the Armenian School was founded in 1927, while the Church of the Virgin Mary of Ganchvor was reconsecrated in 1945, and the Ver chapter of the AGBU was founded in 1949. In the cities mentioned above, there also operated between 1944 and 1948 the highly active Friends of Armenia Association, known as Paregamats. In the past, the Melkonian and Narek schools, as well as the AIMA Club, hosted Armenian Boy Scout systems. Of particular significance was the overall contribution of the Melkonian Educational Institute in Nicosia. It was built by tobacco merchant brothers Grigor and Karapet Melkonian between 1924 and 1926, with the initial purpose of housing 500 children orphaned as a result of the genocide. Known as the Armenian Orphanage, 1934 saw it beginning operation as a secondary education boarding school, and it was not long before it became known far and wide, with students not only from Cyprus but also from another 30 and more countries. By the time of its uncalled-for closure in 2005, this educational institution could boast 1,828 graduates from all over the world. With the establishment of the Republic of Cyprus in 1960, the members of the small Armenian community, which at the time numbered 3,628 people and had forged strong bonds with the other Cypriots, were granted rights equal to those enjoyed by each and every Cypriot citizen. As with the other small communities of Cyprus, Maronites and Latins, the Armenian community enjoys all the rights extended to Cypriot citizens and elects its own representative to the island's parliament. However, the Turkish Cypriot Mutiny of 1963-64 had its adverse effects on the Armenians as well, and primarily those living within the old, walled sector of Nicosia, who once again had to abandon their homes and become refugees. Furthermore, the Turkish invasion in the summer of 1974 brought about the greatest Cypriot tragedy in recent history, with its consequences experienced by the entire population of the island, including the Armenians, and especially those living in Famagusta, Kyrenia, and the old, within-the-walls sector of Nicosia. With the help of the Republic of Cyprus, the Armenian community succeeded in recouping its losses. The new Narek school was built in Nicosia in 1971-72. The new Church of the Virgin Mary, or Sorb Astvatsatzin, was built between 1976 and 1981. The new prelature building was built in 1983-84, while 1990-91 saw the erection of the new genocide memorial. The Kalajian Rest Home for the Elderly, managed by the Kalajian Foundation, was inaugurated on March 6, 1988 by the then Minister of Interior Christodoulos Veniamin in the presence of Catholicos or Patriarch Karekin II. Since 1995, every month sees the circulation of the Artsakank or Echo newspaper, and since 2003 that of the also monthly Azad Tsain, Free Voice. In addition, and since 1997, the Armenian Prelature of Cyprus, following the initiative of Archbishop Varoujan Hergelian, has been publishing the Gegart or Spear monthly ecclesiastical bulletin. Since 1953, the Cyprus Broadcasting Corporation has been broadcasting a daily Armenian language program. In 1999, the largest circulating English-language newsletter, Gibra Hayer, Armenians of Cyprus, first appeared on the Internet, with its publication continuing to this day, while the Armenian community of Cyprus's official website, cyprusarmenians.com, was launched in 2007. Ecclesiastically, the community comes under the Catholicos or Patriarch of Cilicia, who, following the genocide, has his see in Beirut's Antilias. It was there that we met with Aram I, an important spiritual personage.
Today, we are proud that the Armenian community of Cyprus is an integral part of the society, the nation, and the country of Cyprus. Cyprus has and always had an important place in the history of our people. I don't believe that you can find an Armenian in this globe who doesn't have a firm, a close attachment, love, dedication, passion in respect to Cyprus.
The Armenians of Cyprus constitute a small but close-knit and progressive community. Through various artistic, cultural and other events organized by them, through their religious feasts and gatherings, through education, they maintain continuance and solidarity. Through the years, they've always enjoyed excellent relations and ongoing cooperation with the Greek-speaking majority of Cyprus. They are Cypriot citizens, and following the accession of Cyprus to the European Union in 2004, also citizens of today's United Europe.
First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this wonderful event, which gives us all the opportunity to appreciate the traditions and culture of one of the many communities that make up the colorful mosaic that is Cyprus. As we saw in the film, and it's something which I think we often forget, the Armenian community has been part of the fabric of Cyprus since Byzantine times, when in 578 AD, the Byzantine general Mavrikios the Cappadocian brought over 3,000 Armenians to Cyprus, probably as mercenary soldiers and frontiersmen. They gradually founded villages, as we saw in the film, like Armenochori and Arminu, among others, and the monastery of Supmagar, which we also saw in the film, in the Halefka Hills, which dates back from the year 1000 AD. As some of you may know, the monastery was an important pilgrimage site until 1974, and of course, as we saw in the film, it still is a pilgrimage site. It's now fallen into ruin, but we have good news because hopefully it will gradually be restored to its former state as an important religious and historic monument, with the agreement of the Turkish side and funding from abroad. So that's very good news. As Presidential Commissioner with responsibilities for religious minorities, I am charged by President Anastasiadis to make sure that the government of Cyprus fulfills its responsibilities emanating from the Constitution, as well as those it has undertaken by signing international instruments, such as the 2 charters of the Council of Europe for the protection of national minorities and the protection of the language and culture of national minorities. And it's interesting to note that under these charters, the government of Cyprus has enhanced responsibility to take care and make sure that national minorities, or in our case, religious minorities, are able to preserve their language, culture, and religion. In this context, I'd like to express my appreciation for the fact that the University of Nicosia has recently established the Cyprus Center for Intercultural Studies, in addition to the UNESCO chair, which we already heard about, in order to promote intercultural cooperation and understanding, dialogue, and appreciation of diversity. To my mind, these are the most significant values we need to promote in the 21st century, and I believe that the University of Nicosia is definitely playing an important part in this common responsibility which we all share. So let's now enjoy the Armenian dance groups. I've seen them before, and I know they're excellent, and I think you're going to enjoy them very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Claridis. Please join us in welcoming the members of the Sipan Dance Ensemble and the Nanor Junior Dance Ensemble, who will be performing a series of traditional Armenian dances for us. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, to all the members of the very talented and eager Sipan and Nanor dance ensembles. Could we have another round of applause, please? Please welcome to the stage our keynote speaker, Mr. Vartan Tashjan, former director of Nareg Schools and internationally renowned Cypriot Armenian artist.
Thank you so much for your kind invitation and the honor to speak to you today. But I don't know how much are you in the mood of listening to me after these beautiful dances and the beautiful documentary about our community. I can speak about our community for 3 or 4 hours without reading. But I was asked to be as brief as possible, and I will try to respect the time frame allocated to me about our community. Of course, some of the things I will say might be repetition. You saw them on the film. You heard from the previous distinguished speakers. But me being a teacher for many, many years, I know that telling is not teaching. If you want to teach something, you have to repeat it. So I will kindly rely on your understanding if I repeat myself. But at the same time, in order to be brief, I will also appreciate your understanding if I make some haircuts of my own by missing some names or facts. Your Eminence, Reverend Fathers, Excellencies, Honorable Rector of the University of Nicosia, Honorable President of the UNESCO Chair, Madam Commissioner, Mr. Representative of the Armenian community, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I will speak beginning with a brief introduction about the Armenians, and then I will go on with the main subject of my talk. The introduction will be about Armenians, and I will start with the same words as our dear Mr. Mahtesian started, that the Armenians are one of the oldest people in the world with rich civilization and culture. This antiquity is attested by none other than ancient historians Herodotus, Xenophon, and Strabo. The first Armenian dynasty dates back to the 3rd millennium BC. Armenians belong to the Indo-European race, as ancient as the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Jews, the Persians, and the Greeks. Armenia is considered by many scientists and historians as the cradle of civilization, the place where human society was born. According to the Bible, Armenia is where the repopulation of the earth began, when Noah's Ark came to rest on Mount Ararat, as mentioned in the Old Testament. The Armenian language is a crucial factor for national identity. It was spoken long before a unique and independent alphabet with 36 letters was created by a devoted scholar named Mesrop Mashtots in 405 AD. 2 more letters were added in the 11th century. An adoption and development of this alphabet opened the gates of the golden age of Armenian literature. Thereafter, Armenians placed their soul in their art and culture. For hundreds of years, literature, music, painting, architecture, metalworks, stone carving, sculpture, ceramics, carpet making, wall paintings, manuscript illustrations of the Bible, and jewelry and others. Armenia became a museum itself. Despite playing an important role for centuries in the civilization of the world, Armenia was also stained with tragedy, destruction, and injustice. Yet, it never lost faith, perseverance, accomplishment, and hope. Whether driven away from their homeland forcibly or emigrated willingly, Armenians have never forgotten their beloved heritage and have always carried with them their deep pride and resolve to prevail wherever they have settled. And Cyprus is an example. The Armenians have a long and noteworthy history in Cyprus. They came to the island for political and commercial reasons in the 8th century AD and possibly earlier. During the 12th and 14th centuries, there were close contacts between the Armenian kingdom of Cilicia and the Crusaders. Commerce was very active with Cyprus, and there were intermarriages between royal families. During the Egyptian invasion of Cilicia, and later, at the time of the Ottoman occupation of the island and Venetian period, about 30,000 Armenians settled in Cyprus and played active roles in society. During the past century, the Armenian community in Cyprus grew and prospered when thousands of Armenian refugees arrived in the island after the tragic events of 1896 during the Hamidian massacres, the Red Sultan, 1915 during the genocide and persecution, and in 1921 during the nationalistic movement of Kemal Atatürk. After the intercommunal troubles in 1963, and a decade later, following the Turkish invasion in 1974, when the Armenian quarter in Nicosia was overrun by the Turks, all Armenians resettled in the free areas of Cyprus. For them, despite losing everything, life started again with new ventures, challenges, and a return to normality. Thanks to the kind and continuous help provided by the government of Cyprus and the moral support extended by the people of Cyprus. At present, the community has been reduced to approximately 3,500 people, 65% of which live in the capital, and the rest in Larnaca, Limassol, and to a lesser extent, Paphos. This last one mainly recent arrivals from Armenia. They are, the Armenians, mainly involved in commerce, business, crafts, and professions such as teaching, doctors, lawyers, musicians, architects, artists, sportsmen, etc. Religious organizations and churches. The Armenian church is a national institution, and the interests of the church are not separate from that of our nation. The church started organizing in Cyprus during the 12th century. Armenian prelates acted as leaders of the church as well as the community. Our current prelate is Archbishop Varujan Hergelian, who has been here for the last 17 years. The diocese in Cyprus has always been under the Holy See of Cilicia, and its council is the diocesan council, the high body of the community. The constitution of the diocese has been ratified in 1945 by the then Catholicos Karekin I. Out of the 5 churches in Cyprus, St. Maga is the oldest. Established in the 6th century, the name Makarios means blessed. Today, together with its grounds of over 9,000 acres, the monastery is in ruins and in the Turkish-occupied part of Cyprus, on the northern slopes of the Kyrenia mountain range. plans to convert the monastery into a luxury hotel were halted after strong condemnation and outcry by Armenians all over the world, as this place is essentially part of a European and world heritage too. The Ganchforvank in Old Famagusta, built in the 14th century, is another Armenian church and a pilgrimage site. The three churches which at present continue to function are St. Stepanos in Larnaca, built in 1913, St. Kevok in Limassol, consecrated in 1949, and Nicosia's St. Astvadzadzin, All Holy Virgin, built in 1981. The foundation stone of this church, St. Astvadzadzin, was laid by Archbishop Makarios himself. The prelature building was added 3 years later, thus completing the triangle of the community's spiritual and educational compound. The old church of St. Astvadzadzin, dated back to 12th century, was overrun and ransacked by the Turks during the intercommunal troubles in 1963. Located in the Turkish sector, it has been restored recently with the financial assistance provided by the United Nations Development Programme. Cemeteries exist in all towns, and as well as monuments for the genocide victims. Other religious organizations are the Armenian Evangelicals, with a respectable history here, as well as Armenian Catholics with a smaller number. There are followers also of Jehovah's Witnesses, about 25 to 30 people. Educational organizations. The education of its youth being of prime importance, the community has spared no efforts to establish institutions for the task, and the first school opened more than a century ago in Nicosia. A second was added in 1909 in Larnaca, and the one in Limassol opened its doors in 1952. All three schools have been endowed with modern buildings and facilities founded by the Cyprus government. Nicosia in 1972, Larnaca in 1996, and Limassol in 2008. All three schools operate under the name NAREC and maintain high academic standard in 3 languages. The state covers the annual budget in the form of a grant, and education is free for all. The schools are adjacent to the churches, a link of enormous contribution for the protection and preservation of national identity and character. The other Armenian school in Cyprus is the renowned Melkonian Educational Institute, founded in 1926 by brothers Melkonian, a co-educational boarding school, a landmark of academic traditions, and an important link for the Armenian diaspora. Sadly, though, the Melkonian is closed now, following a decision in 2005 by the Central Board of AGBU, the governing body of the Institute. This unfortunate move has produced shock waves and protests in many communities, in particular with the Melkonian alumni worldwide. Other organizations. The community in Cyprus is small, but the number of its institutions, organizations, and activities reflect a totally different picture. Various Armenian clubs and parties operate in all 3 towns. The Armenian Young Men's Association, better known as AIMA, founded in 1934, and the Armenian General Benevolent Union, AGBU, opened in 1913, have new premises and are active, especially AIMA. AIMA has its auxiliary groups such as Hamaskain Cultural Association, the Armenian Relief Society, and other youth organizations involved in theater, cultural, social, sporting, folkloric, scouting, dancing, camping, and other activities. Hamaskain's well-known Sipan dance ensemble, which we witnessed a while ago, and the Timak theatrical group are popular with regular annual performances. Other clubs also engage in similar activities somewhat. Other institutions associated with the community life are, to mention just very briefly, the Armenian radio program aired over the CYBC network, the Armenian church choir and its junior choir, known for their concerts and TV appearances, the Kalajan Rest Home for the Elderly, established by the Kalajan brothers, and at present, the only press representative is the Artsakank Monthly and the newsletters of the church, as well as the Armenian Representative's Office. We have also electronic magazines, gibraher.com and azadkhosk.com, and other electronic magazines. We also have the Nanor Nursery Center, which opened this year, as well as Nanor's Children's Dancing Group, which again saw. Both of these beautiful institutions were established by our dear representative, Mr. Mahtasian, recently. The Armenian representative. According to the Constitution of the Republic, the three religious groups of the island have a representative each in the House of Representatives, who acts as a liaison officer between the community and the government. Their election takes place during the parliamentary elections by secret balloting for a 5-year office term. The current representative is a prominent businessman from Nicosia who won in 2006, and he won re-election in 2011. Cultural activities. Cultural activities are organized annually, keen to seek out and encourage talented young artists and their induction into the Armenian cultural heritage. This objective serves to create a special interest towards the history and the culture of the Armenian people in general, and the integration of various communities into the mainstream of Cyprus in particular. Thus, a mutual understanding and close cooperation is established between Armenian, Greek, Maronite, and Latin organizations, thereby cementing a strong bondage of love, respect, friendship between them. The Ministry of Education and Culture offers its unreserved assistance, financially or otherwise, thus contributing highly for the success of these programs. Moreover, outstanding Armenian artists and musicians from Armenia and the diaspora also perform or exhibit in Cyprus under the auspices of the Pharos Trust Foundation, a non-profit cultural and educational institution created by Garo Keheyan and dedicated to the promotion of a wide range of activities in the fields of humanities and arts. Thus, irrespective of its small size, the Armenian community plays a vital role by providing and promoting its own opportunities for creative expression in culture. The privileges enjoyed by the community is a manifestation of the island's total commitment towards its minorities and a practical way in securing peace, harmony, coexistence, and true friendship and integrated life among its citizens. Within the context of these initiatives, the Armenian Church, the Representative's Office, the Diocesan Council, the National Committee and the Administrative Council, the schools, The clubs, the associations play a significant role as guardians of our national identity, culture and language, traditions and history, embarking annually on lectures, book and art exhibitions, literary evenings, concerts, and other activities. And finally, Cyprus and the Armenian community. The former president of the Republic, the late Spiros Kyprianou, once said, I quote, "The Armenian community of Cyprus forms an integral part of the people of this island. We have shared struggles and sacrifices for the same principles." I unquote. We are deeply grateful to the government and to the people of Cyprus, looking at them as forces on which we can count and trust in our struggles for development, improvement, and progress. After all, our causes are the same. Our struggle should be the same, as our problems are the same, caused by those who continue to ignore and scorn the rightful aspirations of the Cypriot people for justice in their own country. As the centenary of the Armenian genocide draws near, I cannot forget the words of a former Armenian prelate, the late Archbishop Pakhtikian, who, having never experienced the warmth of a family life, he was an orphan, verbalized his feelings as follows, I quote, "We grew up without the loving arms of a father and the sweet smile of a mother. April 24, 1915 is our wall of lamentation, and my heart is a mobile cemetery of which I will speak as long as I live. A nation is great when it can bandage its own wounds. We are not rich. We are not strong. We are not big. But our wealth, our strength is in our books, in our manuscripts, in our culture, in our history, in our heritage, in our church." My dear friends, vision, determination, and courage cannot be borrowed. Only you can give it to yourself. It was this vision, it was this courage that a saintly figure in the name of Gregory, 17 centuries ago, laid the foundation stone of our faith in Christianity at the foot of our symbolic temple, Ararat, and with his followers, heroes, writers, intellectuals, all of them, he illuminated us from generation to generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tashjan. I would like to invite Dr. Emiliu Solomou back on stage for this evening's closing address.
You know, tonight's event with the speeches and the dances brought very fond memories of my own connection with the Armenian community through my father, who was closely associated with AIMA for many, many years, and myself, with fellow students as a student at the English school, and subsequently as a teacher there, where I had the privilege to teach quite a number of very able and bright Armenian students. A number of them are here in this room tonight. As a conclusion, I would like to thank Vatkias Maktesian for cooperating so closely and making this event possible. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Tasjian, whose wife happens to be or to have been a classmate of mine. Mrs. Kate Clearidis, Cyprus Commissioner for Overseas and Religious Groups Affairs, the Rector of the University of Nicosia, Professor Atalidis, the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Foundation, and Mr. Hubert Faustmann for sponsoring our event, as well as Marilena Zacheos, the Director of the Cyprus Center for Intercultural Studies, who offered valuable assistance in preparing this event. Special thanks to Elisa Bosio, our events officer, and to my assistant, Stella Dimitriadis, whose help in organizing this event has been invaluable. Congratulations go to the dancers and the choreographer of Sipan and Nanor ensembles, as well as all parties who assisted in organizing this event. I take this opportunity to announce that the University of Nicosia, through the UNESCO chair, has decided to offer 2 scholarships to the Armenian community of Cyprus. Details on this and the criteria for selection will be communicated through the office of the representative, Mr. Vatkias Maktesian. Thank you all for being here with us tonight.